Good morning. We're just about 10 o'clock. Welcome to this meeting of the Community and Services Committee. Councillor Ferg, the chair of the committee. I'd like to say a very good morning and morena to our councillors, Whitehead, Tucker, Guy, Wong and Bruce. I hope you've been having a good week. Also to our General Manager, Ken Bailey, on my right. Nice to see you again, Ken. To our Governance Advisor, Sarah, nice to see you and have you here again. And to staff and the gods. Nice to see you again. Thanks for your contribution to the meeting today, and to any media that might be out there tuned in and listening and taking an interest. We thank you for that. We'll get underway. The public forum. We've not received any public forum requests so far, so no resolution is required there. Confirmation of the agenda, where we do need a resolution, so we do need a mover and a seconder, that the agenda be confirmed without addition or alteration. Do we have a mover? Councillor Guy, a seconder. Councillor Whitehead, all those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Community and Services Committee held on the 27th of June. We do need a resolution that the minutes of that meeting be confirmed as a true and correct record. Do we have a mover? Councillor Wong, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Tucker, all those in favour? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Carried. Apologies. No apologies have been received. Have I been doing this back to front, have I? I might have been. No, that's okay. I've started on the wrong side of the paper, that's age. No apologies have been received. Declarations of conflict of interest. Any declarations of conflict of interest? No. And any matters lying on the table? No, there are not. So I think after all that,
meeting closed.
Meeting closed. Let's go and have a cup of tea and a light out. Right, let's get into our, we've got two agenda items to address here this morning. First off, the Navigation Safety and Bylaw, and I understand Luke Place and Carrie Williams are presenting on behalf of staff. Thank you for your report. And Isabel?
And Anto.
And Anto. Got the 18. The resolution required from the committee is that the Community and Services Committee, 1, note the contents of this report, and 2, note the development of a draft QLDC Navigation and Safety Bylaw. Is there any comment further from staff that you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'm Luke Place, I'm Principal Policy Advisor, and leading the review of the Navigation Safety Bylaw with our team that we've got here, Isabel Logiers and Anto Hall is the manager, who are both in the regulatory team, of course, Carrie is my manager. So yeah, as you noted, the report addresses the review of Navigation Safety Bylaw. I just draw council's attention to table 1 of the report, which details officers' recommendations on key issues that are subject to the review. We're happy to take the report as read and also to work through the key topics in turn as they set out in the report, if that suits the committee. And yeah, keen to receive feedback on any matter that you'd like to provide feedback on.
Thank you, Luke. I think on this issue, the Navigation Safety Bylaw, I thank you for the work that you've done on that. And I think in recent times, when we think of water, recent tragedy in Southland is pretty close to home. We go back to Glenorchy within our own community in recent times. So I think the work undertaken with this is not only timely, but it's an important document when it comes to water safety and the wider aspect of that. I just want to get the ball rolling, if I can ask our General Manager, Ken Bailey, just to give us a little bit of clarification on point 2. I hope other councillors don't mind. Which says, note the development of a draft QLDC Navigation Safety Bylaw. So in terms of development, we know this is going to go to full council for adoption in 19th of September. So development of a draft Navigation Safety Bylaw. Can you give us a bit of clarity around that word or what they're seeking as such?
Yeah, sure, Chair. I'm actually going to defer to the team, to be frank. And maybe it's part of what Luke's put on the table about not just the key changes or recommendations, but also the process that's informing the draft, the consultation required, and some of the touch points the team's worked through to actually inform what's in point 2, if you don't mind, Luke.
Yeah, sure. So through Chair, Yeah, so I suppose what we're trying to do through the paper is to highlight the sort of robust process that we've followed so far, which is set out in that early context section that talks to how we've got to where we've got to today in terms of considering the key issues with the team here, undertaking pre-engagement with the public, working through receiving feedback from various key stakeholders, also engaging with Wanaka, include the community board earlier, just a number of weeks ago actually, and also bringing it to the Community Services Committee. We note that in the delegations register there are the committee has key key activity areas that relate to the bylaw development. So we're following that pathway in terms of the bylaw development, which includes the community board and the Community Services Committee, and then onto the full council as the delegation to approve draft bylaw for consultation. So that's sort of what we're asking the committee to note.
Great. Thanks for that, Luke.
Chair, comfortable with that. So we've actually followed the gateway process
Yeah.
that will see this go out for public consultation.
Right.
Can I ask a question that follows that? Because it's pretty much the same question, sorry. So does that mean that it can develop further beyond what we read today or not?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Great. Councillors, over to you. Any questions you'd like to lead in with? Councillor Wong.
You go first because you always wait.
I've got several, but I'll just ask one for now. I'm just curious about Sunshine Bay and the fact that it hasn't been identified as an existing ski lane, but there's obviously infrastructure in place to mark that it is. Can you just give us a bit of a background to Sunshine Bay and how it evolved into what it is today and why obviously it got left off?
I'm not too clear on the historical nature of that ski lane, or that it is present and that it's being used. So that was identified, and that's why we're looking to formally establish it through this bylaw review. But as to when or how it came to be, I'm unclear.
Okay, so the poles that were stuck up to mark it as a ski lane unofficially, they were placed up by council, I have to assume, or do we know that?
The presumption is that council's been involved in that process, but there's been nothing documented in that
Okay.
regard.
All right, okay, it's fine, a little bit on.
That's noted.
Councillor Whiteley.
So Wilson's Bay was talked about, but then I believe there are no changes. I just wanted confirmation on that. With that, sorry, specific to the ski lanes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll leave that to you guys to.
Yes, I think from what is here, it was being put forward to retain it but shift it slightly.
Yep, so that's in one of the attachments of the report, which we can bring up.
Excuse me, through you, Chair, if you don't mind explaining the page, Luke, that'd be great. It's very comprehensive.
Page 50 is where it talks to the preferred option for the ski lane, which says to retain the ski lane but to shift it approximately 80 metres west. By moving the right pole to the left pole location. And so the intention behind that was to shift it slightly away from where the swimmers are, from the main swimming area on that beach.
So we've got no change or we'll retain it.
Yes, those are two
Okay.
options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And option 2 is the preferred option.
That's correct.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Just wanted clarification on that. And another question was just around in terms of improving ski lane identification for public understanding and compliance. So we've got the kind of regulatory and non-regulatory aspects of that. I'm not a boat user, and obviously once you've got ski lane, you can't within ski lane you can't be a recreational user as a swimmer. But it's very challenging in my personal view to understand where the ski lanes are. You've talked about using signage. Can you just tell us, for any public watching, what that looks like in terms of an education programme? Rather than a regulatory one.
The, just on the identification, so I believe, part 91, that outlines the identification requirements around the poles. And then there's the signage component, which is more of the educational aspect. And so, I mean, that is very open to develop whatever would work to get that message across. We have done some signage previously that shows, you know, where to look for the markers and how to use a ski lane and things like that. But there is a lot of room to develop that further to meet the needs of the community, so they can better understand how ski lanes work and how to identify them and what you can and can't do in a ski lane.
Okay, my view was that I felt that could be more explicit within the bylaw. Because if the education piece kind of sits outside of the bylaw, then I don't know how we would kind of steer that. So that it's more effective, essentially. The signs are really quite small. And if you're a non-resident or maybe someone not from New Zealand or just anyone, it's, if you see two poles with black and yellow, it doesn't necessarily explain what that is. And then the signs are tiny. So you've got to look for the sign. So I don't know what that looks like in terms of improved education, but I think it would be really good to, in the development of this, to have more of a steer on what that looks like. And maybe bring that aspect of it back to full council.
So through the chair, if I can follow up on that, I suppose one opportunity that we might have is to include like an explanatory note in the Bible that brings attention to which we have used elsewhere, but they're quite limited in terms of we like to not necessarily include too many additional words in there just to avoid the length aspect, but we can certainly investigate how that might look in the bylaw itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Bruce.
Through the chair, just in terms of the time frame for this process, obviously today is one step in that process, then goes to council, and then if it's approved by council, it goes to consultation. What period are you going to do the consulting on? Very conscious that probably the majority of boat users in Wanaka and the Upper Clutha are part-time residents or visitors who are only here over the summer months, but yet they make up the vast majority of users of the lake, lakes and river. How can we capture those people into this consultation process?
Through the chair. So our intention is to initiate the consultation period almost immediately after a full council meeting. So we're considering the 30th of September to the 31st of October at this stage, although we haven't necessarily firmed up those, but that's our preliminary indication of when the consultation will take place. And so you're interested, if you can just confirm for me in regard to...
Yeah, just with respect, the majority of users are December, January.
Yeah.
And they, particularly those peak periods over that Christmas, New Year, the place is jam-packed. It's important that we get to those people and communicate with those people, because a lot of them are part-time residents, property owners, and regular visitors. And, you know, we saw the feedback we got with particularly with the Glenview Bay camp, there were there's generations of people that have used that facility for many years, and I'm concerned that if we make changes without consulting those regular users and people who do feel an attachment to the place, we're missing out a large sector.
I can respond to that through chair. So yeah, we'll be following the special consultative procedure to make sure that we are implementing our responsibilities under LGA, reaching as many people as possible. I understand that the regulatory team also have key contacts with a number of recreational users and commercial users throughout the district, and we'll be taking advantage of those contacts and making sure that we notify them of the process as widely as possible. So yeah, we'll certainly be putting in as much effort as possible to reach as many people as possible, including through our social media channels and likes. Take on.
To you, Chair, just to add to what Luke said, there's an equivalent, if not higher risk in trying to consult over the summer period because those key stakeholders are commercial operators and what have you are in the thick of the busy summer season. They have a very good case to make, but they don't have a fair opportunity to prepare a submission to a public consultation. So we're stuck there, and it's a point really well made that we need to ensure this is a robust consultation. I understand there's radio campaigns in order. There'll be a lot of social media posts. We know we get a lot of submissions on this bylaw, but noting your point of the importance of trying to stretch outside the district.
For you here, councillor, your point's well made. I was just thinking about stage 5 upgrade up Wanaka waterfront. And the engagement that was had through that process to determine the outcomes of that project. And just noting that maybe we need, because clearly the team have outlined we've got a statutory requirement under the process we need to follow. But I picked up on your point, if you're as you referred to a part-time resident that comes on holiday, you may not be within one of those channels that's on a local radio or it's da-da-da. So maybe through the contact list. I don't know if we've done anything unique through the rates, accounts or anything of that nature, but we can certainly talk further to the team. Just picking up Carrie's point around just that entire timing. I suspect if you are on holiday, being gifted the opportunity to read your 184-page bylaw that council's produced for the Christmas edition might not be quite what you had in mind. But again, we need to look at how we actually engage, because as we found with that Wanaka waterfront upgrade, the majority of some of the voices came through that period outside of the regular contact. So we do need to give some thought to a well-made point. Thank you.
Happy to be back. Any other questions? Councillor Guy.
Thank you, if I may, through the chair. Just got 2 questions. So a timeline to adopting a final policy, would that be in place by this summer, or are we thinking we're going to be operating on existing conditions through this summer?
It'll be early next year as we move through towards requesting that council a following hearing and hearing deliberations and preparation of a report to request council to adopt early next year.
And then also for people who may be listening and starting to follow the evolution of this bylaw, there's quite a significant change around us removing ski lanes from Frankton Arm, and in fact, my understanding is there will now be no ski lanes available in the Frankton Arm area at all. Can you speak to that as to why? We've got the notes here around increasing user conflicts and things, but I think that's an area that the community might be taken by surprise with, that we've actually looking at the removal of all of the ski lanes in that area.
I'll just start off with the first response here is that in the table in this document, it talks really well to the individual issues that each ski lane has and why that is the preferred option. So each ski lane in Frankton Bay as well, they've all got their different quirks, I guess, that have a lot of conflicts with other users in the area, or potentially they're quite exposed to weather conditions and they're not suitable for users and things like that. I can see that we're putting forward to retain the Calvin Grove ski lane, but shifting it slightly, I believe. And then, look, did you want to talk to?
Yeah, so in terms of through the chair, we are conscious that there are a number of recommendations that staff are making to remove a number of ski lanes based on the regulatory team's experience and the Harbour Master's advice also. I think we're certainly open to, as has been set out in the report, to replacement ski lanes following consultation. We're certainly not closed off to the idea of making sure that there are sufficient recreational opportunities in terms of the use of water skiing and ski lanes, including in Frankton. So, yeah, really keen to receive feedback from the community around what impacts they consider from our proposals, and if of course council choose to move forward with that recommendation, it is up to council to decide if they're happy with that recommendation. So yeah, or I suppose what I can say is that we're certainly open to considering alternative options.
And one, because I'm not a user of these facilities, can you explain to me, do jet skis need to use a ski lane to access or depart from a beach area, or are they considered, can you just move from a beach and go and land a jet ski anywhere? Or?
Only if they're towing, so you can only use a ski lane for the purposes of towing a water skier. So if the jet ski is towing someone, they'd be permitted to exceed 5 knots and use it for that purpose. Other than that, outside of the ski lane, jet skis are subject to the same rules of not being able to exceed 5 knots within 200 metres of the shore.
Right. But in that instance, if we remove ski lanes from Frankton, that doesn't have a consequence on the jet ski users that are not towing skiers. A jet ski would still be able to put in at Frankton Beach and operate.
To be clear, yes, but they would need to be, they'd be limited to 5 knots within 200 metres of the shore.
Yeah.
So just through you, Chair, I want to point Councillor Guy. And as Luke's talked about the methodology, that's what's informed this comprehensive adjustment to the bylaw. We know that that will also be a talking point within the community because, as the team's rightly pointed out, there'll be the pathway, the adoption, and then there'll also be a phase of change. And it's also, and I know 1 and 2 of you have previously looked at this too, what's the education piece for that change? If you come back to Councillor Bruce's point, we will have a number of regular returners for the summer period that potentially are going to be in a space where we have adjusted, changed, or made complete amendments based on what feedback lands this final bylaw. That could be quite different to what a number of people have currently experienced. It may just be through you, Chair, one of the team may want to comment that part of what's informing some of those changes is the experience of what the enforcement team's dealing with, the harbour master, but also, just the sheer volume that we're now starting to see in this recreation space, whether it's jet ski boat or any other device that's starting to pop up on the water, including those hover blade things that you see whipping along. I'm not sure if one of you would like to just comment on that, but there's certainly been quite a bit of thought to the methodology that's informed what we've got in front of us today.
Yes, exactly that. I think you covered that off really well. These preferred options that are put forward are based off extensive information, mainly from complaints that we're receiving through the request system, observations from the harbour master, that's feedback to us, feedback from the community through various channels when we engage with them, from the commercial operators, and we work quite closely with Maritime New Zealand as well, so we have put forward these recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wong.
Thank you, Chair. So it's, I guess the bylaw is driven by safety first and foremost, and on the face of it, we've got table 3, option D, page 22, I think, page 22. Creating areas for passive water users to provide additional separation. On the face of it, it almost sounds obvious to create a space just for swimmers, for example, where no boats can go, but I'm assuming there's a lot more complication to that, and I'm just wondering whether you could speak to why option D would not be an option that you probably prefer to use. And I say that being mindful for the Fernhill Sunshine Bay Community Association, who's talking about putting pontoon in down there in a specific zone for swimming. So I'm just wondering if we could get some expert advice on why that might not be appropriate.
I'll give that a go and then pass to Luke. But my understanding is that the main reason behind that is that the purpose of this bylaw is to manage navigation safety in regard to vessels and those users. And so there is a difference in managing swimmers for that nature as opposed to managing vessels and navigation and safety in that regard. So it's more so to do with the purpose of the bylaw and what it's trying to achieve there.
Managing vessels and boats more so than
Yeah.
swimmers.
If I can, through chair, follow up on that. So, we note that that is certainly an option. That's why it's canvassed in the report. I suppose, on balance, there are a number of restrictions that already exist within the bylaw that do, I suppose indirectly, but protect the areas where swimmers might be, in a way that ensures vessels are being navigated in a way that is basically safe from the navigation perspective. So the likes of a 5 knot limit within 200 meters of the shore. There's also, I understand, if you're within 50 meters, if a vessel is within 50 meters of a person or another structure or vessel, then you, there are additional restrictions, around
They're subject to 5 knots.
subject to 5 knots. So there are a range of existing provisions within the bylaw that are geared up to ensure that others in the water and in particular areas, i.e. close to the shore, are protected in a way. Of course, it doesn't necessarily protect those areas for swimmers or other passive users, but indirectly it does provide them with some safeguards.
And I assume you're not the only organisation that has to manage this. You just briefly name all the other organisations that you have to work with on this bylaw. So I mean, there's New Zealand, Linz, some of those guys.
Through chair, so we, it is our regional council has delegated the creation, navigation, safety and management of bylaw and management of navigation safety to us. So it is primarily our responsibility to manage navigation safety and all those provisions that exist in the bylaw. As you point out, Maritime New Zealand does have a role to play and a range of other aspects, but that primarily relates, as I understand, to commercial vessels and in regard to incidents and accidents and things like that. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, I'd just like to make mention of the work that's been done so far, and thank you for that. As we know, there are potentially changes within this document. I guess it's not so much a plea, but a call to all lake users when it gets through full council for adoption to consult, is that the lake users and boaties out there in water spheres, is that we hear your voice. So, yeah, you tuned in this morning. We do need to hear back from the community around this document in the consultation phase. So I'll just leave it at that. Any other questions?
Sorry, I do have loads actually, but I just think maybe we can just briefly discuss them afterwards rather than question. But there was just one question around the identification aspect of it. So I'm aware that the harbour master employees don't have identification themselves, and so that's a bit of an issue when they're trying to be authoritative and educate users. So the changes that we're proposing there, could you just explain how that's going to help the harbour masters themselves? So we've got identification for being proposed for all vessels or just some? Can you just explain some of that, please?
Yeah, sure. Through the chair, I can start off by that.
Thank you.
To be assisted by the by my colleagues. So the proposed vessel ID provisions are included as an attachment to the report.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've seen. So the intention is to basically limit the extent to which they apply to certain vessels. So one of the limitations is a 6 meter threshold. And if I just bring them up. So the intention is to have them to be right sized basically, and to make sure that they're focused on the vessels that are most likely to need to be identified in certain circumstances, that they're propelled, their size, how many people might be in them, and where they might be as a result of them being propelled. Distance from shore and risk factors like that. So yeah, I'll turn over to you if you can.
The only other thing I'd add to that is that commercial vessels are managed by Maritime, so they have their own MNZ registered number that they have to display on their boat. So commercial vessels aren't subject to these particular rules that we're putting forward to introduce. They are governed and managed by Maritime New Zealand.
Okay. So from, I guess what I'm trying to understand is from a practical point of view, if a harbour master is trying to educate a user, one of the issues they face is that they themselves don't have identification, like the user can't identify them often as a harbour master, and that's been a problem anecdotally. So is there anything happening around that?
I can
That you know,
maybe talk to that. I'm not aware of that. Their vessels are commercial, so they're all identified. Additional to that, I've overviewed all the additional labelling to make it very clear that they're Waterways Regulatory Services, Harbour Master Services, and every staff member that is undertaking those processes is warranted as an officer as well. So if you got specific feedback, I'd like to get that so I can
I think I
understand
did share it, you know, but it was also that aspect of the harbour master staff then can't, unless they follow the user back to shore and get their registration of their car, they often can't identify them. So this will go some way potentially to support that. But
So,
depending on the size of the vessel and how far it is from shore, etc.
So I feel that's a separate question to the first one. So separating that out
Yeah.
around the identification of the officer in question versus
Yeah.
the vessels themselves. At the moment, if a vessel goes past and it's red and a person in the community sees it and feels there's a breach, the only information they have the ability to provide us is that it was a red vessel that went past.
Yeah.
Moving forward through the identification systems, there will obviously be a requirement of some sort of identification.
Yeah.
And that will certainly help, similar to a car rego, and then through some of those processes, we can use the different databases that are already out there to see if we can identify it back, similar to the car rego thing, but it does enable clear identification of the vessel, which isn't there right now, but a lot of vessels still do already identify their vessels, like vessel naming is a very popular thing across vessels.
Thank you.
Just through you, Chair, just adding to that, if you wouldn't mind, this is a system that, when I read the report, it's been applied in other parts of the country, like you talk about naming, you know, often it's a label that people pick up on. Other centres are also looking at this, aren't they? Because coming back to your point, you know, that boat may travel well and find itself in different districts as well as different sections of water, and those identifiers are starting to become a bit more regular throughout the country, correct?
You are correct. It's currently not a national standard
No.
by Maritime New Zealand. It's something we certainly encourage Maritime New Zealand to look at, along with some other factors, which would not be nice, similar to life jacket rules. They're currently not national standards. However, through the engagement with Maritime New Zealand, they're providing us a sort of pathway of consistency, as well as us checking in with other agencies. And one of the key agencies or councils we check in with is ORC. So we are looking at our bylaw specifically through the lens of ORC, ensuring that it's consistent with theirs. It's not always the same, but it's certainly consistent, and they do have identification rules within their bylaw currently.
Thank you.
If I can add through the chair, so Environment Canterbury also have vessel ID requirements. So what the provisions are set up to do is provide high degree of flexibility for vessel owners. So for example, if they're identified in Otago Regional Council's area, which also includes our area to some extent, but also in Canterbury, therefore they can rely on that identification, the identification standards in that region or area. So yeah, we're trying to provide a high degree of flexibility as to what and how they might be identified in other regions.
Just going to say, Chair, just before you take us through, just through you acknowledging the report, what the team have done to inform where we're at with this actual document today, take it further. As you possibly picked up on, it's a complex piece of work. And if you look at the interaction from a recreational or a commercial or just a user experience of what we're seeing across our waterway network, there is certainly a lot of different pressures start to emerge. So I don't think there's going to be any panacea about what's potentially going to be needed as an outcome of consultation, but it's certainly going to create quite the conversation as you've all noted today.
Great, thank you. Excellent conversation. Thank you, councillors, for your questions. Thank you, staff, for your answers and guidance. So we get to the resolution that the Community and Services Committee, 1, note the contents of this report, and 2, note the development of a draft QLDC Navigation Safety Bylaw 2024. We do need a mover, Councillor Bruce. We do need a seconder, Councillor Wong. All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
Guys.
No, I was gonna.
Rightio, we move to item 2 of the agenda, which is the Chair's report, which is something that we've instigated in this triennium in recent times, just to give visibility for those around the table, i.e. present, or the media, or those tuned in, visibility over the work being done around community and services. I got off to a bit of a shaky start this morning, so we're going to hand that to our Deputy Chair, Councillor Whitehead, to take us through the report. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the report. I think it's really good to just daylight all work that's happening, and anybody watching can just have an easy update. I won't be reading it out, but just to note that at a higher level that the parks team are currently progressing 4 reserve management plans, both in Queenstown and in Wanaka. In sport and rec, the big news is the demolition of 516, which our community is aware of, but it's nearly complete, and the contractors are looking to remove the recycled materials and rubbish over the next 2 weeks, and the slab will be left as a concrete pad for potential community use in the future. So whilst that's been had some contention in the community, it's really tracking forward now, and good news for the community. A large volume of LTP submissions have been received. So that's really great to see, and we'll be getting to that soon as full council. In terms of community partnerships, we've got a few things happening in that space. So QLDC has worked with our community to develop the 3-year welcoming plan for the district. We had, I would say, about 100 people at the Queenstown Event Centre yesterday evening, and we've got one over in Wanaka this evening. So that's been really great to be a part of, and many people involved. We've got the latest community funding rounds to be added to QLDC's new online application platform. So the Get Active Community Grant and the Creative Community Scheme. And in news on libraries, we have got the QLDC libraries have implemented a fine-free model as of the 1st of July 2024 in partnership with Central Otago Libraries. So this means that previously overdue items were free from fines for children and senior borrowers, and now all borrowers are included in that.
Clarification that the welcoming communities is next week onwards.
Oh, I apologise. I thought that was this. Just sorry for anyone listening. The welcoming communities is next
Wednesday, the 14th of August.
next Wednesday, the 14th of August in Wanaka, not this evening. So I think that's probably the update. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, it's great to see the work continuing, and appreciate the efforts of staff, those that are responsible for bringing the report to the table. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. We do need the resolution required is that the Community and Services Committee, 1, note the contents of this report. And we do need a mover and a seconder. Mover, Councillor Tucker, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Whitehead, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, carried. Thank you, councillors, thank you, staff. And meeting closed at 21 minutes to 11. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Cool.